The Dark Star.
The Dark Star VII. Michael was sitting outside the Starving Artist Cafe enjoying a small cup of espresso when he was overcome with the deepest feeling of déjà vu he had ever felt. He swore he had been sitting in the same chair, drinking the same coffee, when the same red Hyundai Santa Fe drove by with the same New Hampshire plates. Same driver with the white ball cap. Same cracked right headlamp casing. He shook his head and closed his eyes, rubbing his temples with the tips of his thumbs. He felt his phone buzz in his pocket. "Hello," he said, bringing the phone up to his ear. "Hi, Michael. It's me. Nancy. Is now a good time?" "Hey Nancy, sure I'm free now. What's up? Is everything okay?" he said, setting the small espresso cup down on the wrought iron table and leaning back in his chair. A waitress walked by carrying a tray of dirty dishes, humming a Taylor Swift song, her white sneakers squeaking on the linoleum floor. "Your friend Ben. His full name was Benjamin Harris, right? And he lived in San Mateo, California?" "Yeah, he moved out there just after college. Works in the film industry." "Why?" "He was found dead of apparent suicide yesterday morning. I spoke to one of the reporters, said I was a friend of the family, and they told me he hung himself. A neighbor found him and called the cops. He'd been dead for hours." "I'm so sorry." Michael stared out the window to the streets outside, people walking by smiling, enjoying the weather. He took in a deep breath and held it for a moment. And exhaled. "I've got to go see his mother. She might not even know," he said, but inside he was thinking, my best friend growing up, my first real friend, was dead. Do me a favor and find out all you can. Ben was a little strange, a little introverted. That's what drew him to filmmaking, that he could stay behind the camera. But he was never in his life suicidal. "Can you meet me at my place in about an hour?" he asked, getting up from his chair and heading towards the exit. "Give me 2 hours, and I'll be there with bells on." He headed out the door, the little bell above the frame dinging its little song as he went through, and down to his car parked along the sidewalk. As he went to reach for the door handle, a wave of emotion poured over him. Ben was gone. Really gone. And now I have to go tell his mother, if she doesn't already know. That last thought sprung him into action, and he wiped the edge of his eye for the tear that had just bubbled up, reached for the car door handle, got in, put on his seatbelt, started the car and pulled out with determination. The drive across town went by in a silent blur, but he didn't turn the radio on. He wanted to be alone with his thoughts. As he pulled into Ben's mother's driveway, he could see the liftgate to her SUV was open, and she was struggling down the stairs with a suitcase. He pulled his car up next to hers, and she didn't even turn to notice him, her eyes intent on the suitcase as she brought it down each concrete step with a thud. "Grace," he yelled from across the driveway, "Grace, let me help you with that." And he ran up the steps and placed his hand on the top of the suitcase, and she finally looked up at him with tear-stained eyes. "It can't be him, Michael, it can't be. I just know it. It's not him they found. It's not my," and with that last word she collapsed her head against his shoulder, her body shuddering with grief and sadness. He wrapped his arm around her and held her for a moment until she caught her breath. "What are you doing? Where are you going?" he asked, looking down, and she stood up straight, regaining her composure. "I told those stupid cops in California that there is no way my boy killed himself, and I am flying there on the next flight," she said, fighting back the tears and clearing her throat. "I booked the next flight out of Albany. I'm heading there right now, and there isn't a person on this earth who can stop me. Not even you, Michael." He stepped back and picked up the suitcase, carrying it down the stairs and placing it in the hatchback of her SUV. He pulled down the liftgate and smiled at her. "I wouldn't dream of standing in your way. Not in a million years. I just heard what happened from a friend of mine who was a reporter in New York. She was here to do a story on David, and we became friends. Are you okay?" "Young man, I drove home from a David Bowie concert once at 4 a.m. after being awake for 2 days. I can handle driving myself to the airport. What you can do is find out from that reporter friend of yours exactly what the hell happened, because we both know Benjamin, if that is even Benjamin's body they found out there, would never kill himself. I refused to believe it. Me too, he said, looking her deeply in her red-stained eyes. I'll find out everything I can. I promise. She walked over the driver's side door and tossed her purse in before turning back to Michael, giving him the best smile she could muster. I know you will. I'll see you when I get back. And with it she pulled out of the driveway and turned onto the highway with a squeal. Michael stood staring at the trees for a moment, listening to her car fade off into the distance with the wind rustling the leaves, got into his car and headed back to his place. When he pulled into his driveway, Nancy's car was already parked, and she stood leaning against the hood, her curly red hair peeking out from a knitted cap. She sheepishly waved as he pulled in and got out to greet her. "Well, you got here quick," he said, smiling and giving her a light hug. She slung her heavy shoulder bag up her shoulder, and they turned towards the house. "Did you find out anything?" he asked, looking at her as he unlocked the front door where Luna was waiting, her gray fluffy tail sticking straight up in the air. She walked into the room, bending down to give Luna a gentle pat on the head before setting her bag on the table and sitting down in the cushioned back chair. She let out a sigh. "I spoke with the reporter who was on the scene when the call came in. She almost met the cops at the door," she said. "She told me the place had been ransacked, completely ripped apart, like someone was searching for something. And they said they found him in the closet, hanging from the clothes rod. Completely naked. They said it was autoerotic asphyxiation," she said, trying to break the news as softly as she could. "If he accidentally killed himself jacking off, why the hell was his place ransacked? That doesn't make any sense. It's more like someone killed him and made it look like that after they couldn't find what they were looking for." "How do you know they didn't find it?" she asked, raising her eyes up to him. "If they found it, there would be no reason to make it look like an accident. The reporter you talked to said they completely ransacked the place, right? I think I know what they were looking for." "You do?" He explained the game he had found and how it was different from when he was a kid, and that it said there were only 2 attempts left. "I think that whatever they were looking for is hidden in that game, or that version of that game, and it was important enough to kill my friend over." "No one is ever going to believe this," she said matter-of-factly. "You realize this, right? That's why we have to find whatever is on that drive. It's gotta be some kind of proof, something. Do you have the address of that Dr. Campbell? He designed the game, right? What if we drive up there, knock on his door and ask him if he will help us?" he asked, walking back and forth trying to think of any good ideas. Nancy stared at him, shaking her head. But there was a part of her, that part that had made her want to become an investigative journalist, that needed to know the whole story, thought that it was just crazy enough to work. "Well, the worst thing he technically could do is tell us to fuck off," she said, and they both looked at each other with a slight grin on their faces. "We have to take your car though. I didn't pay for extended miles on my rental," she said, and they both broke out laughing. "Fuck it. Let's do it," he said, and they started getting ready to go.